this is Eric Thompson. I am founder of Peerless Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. The title of this video, how much your investments are making. How are they doing? Spoiler alert, they're probably doing a little bit better than you think. And I'm going to go through some common pitfalls on kind of how to tell how you're doing. It's important, right? You invest money, you want it to grow, and you want to sort of be able to monitor that. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario. Client 3 or 4 years ago works at a company, builds up money in their 401k, switches companies, has a few $100,000 they built up in their 401k. They roll it over to a financial advisor. The financial advisor invests it on their behalf. The client doesn't look at it every day, right? That's why they have their advisor. But a few years go down the road and she takes a look at it and she logs into her, let's say that her advisor uses Schwab as their custodian or broker. She logs in and she pulls it up and she clicks on the holdings and she says, oh, it's up 20%. That's cumulative. And I did this 4 years ago. And she's thinking, I just heard the stock market went up over 20% last year, and I've had this in 4 years, and I've only made 20%. Something's off. So she calls her advisor. Newsflash, not a hypothetical. This is actually one of my clients, and this is a very typical situation. So she gives me a call, and she tells me, hey, I don't think I'm making that much money. In fact, some of my investments are actually down. And I said, you know, what are you looking at here? And she says, well, I'm looking right online at Schwab. And Schwab says, I only made $93,000 based on that chunk that I put in over 4 years ago. And that's over 20%. And I'm going to pull up on the screen right now what she's looking at. And I didn't include the section with her name and account number. So here it comes up on the screen. And this is the detail when she pulled up her IRA account. And you can see all the holdings on the left, various mutual funds and ETFs. And then over there on the right, it'll say realized and it'll say unrealized gain or loss. And it'll tell you the dollar amounts they made or lost. And then on the top right, which I've put a number 2 next to it, you see a figure of $93,021, which is a gain of just over 20%. And that's where she's getting that. And I told her, I said, you know, this isn't the whole story. This gain is just one aspect of what you made. And this is a very confusing issue for a lot of clients. This is just your tax loss or gain. It doesn't include interest, dividends, or a lot of mutual funds do something called capital gain distributions. So I'll give you some examples of that. So if I had bought a stock or a stock fund or stock ETF on her behalf, let's say it was a dividend-based stock fund, and she put $10,000 into it 4 years ago. And let's say it paid a 5% dividend. 4 years later, that $10,000 is at $12,000. Well, this would show a 20% gain, but it doesn't account for the dividend of 5% a year. That dividend, for her at least, is reinvested to buy her more shares. So the number of her shares is a lot higher than what she started with. So she's getting free shares by dividend reinvestments. In the case of a retiree, they might be spending that dividend because maybe they're on, withdrawals to help fund their retirement. Bond funds or individual bonds work the same way. Bonds pay interest. They don't really grow in price. That interest either sweeps over and helps retirees with their monthly distributions, or it reinvests to buy more shares. So for those two reasons, the gain that you see on your brokerage account, such as Schwab, when you pull it up, is not going to include interest and dividends. So it almost always understates. The other thing, and she was semi-correct in pointing this out, she said, there's even a fund on there that is down quite a bit. It's an emerging markets fund from the American Funds Group. It's down about 19%. And that is correct. However, that fund was just recently purchased a few months ago. I sold out of another emerging market fund that I didn't like as much. and we made a bunch of money on that fund. That gain is now gone. I mean, it's in the account, but it's not showing under the tax loss. So it gets very confusing unless you have some third-party software to really put it in a lot more simpler terms. And I told her, I said, let me show you something that gives you a much simpler picture. And we have some software. It's from a firm called Capitect, and it links into Schwab as well as other brokerage firms too. And it takes all of that stuff that I mentioned, interest, dividends, reinvested shares, things you don't own anymore that I have sold that have made money, all that stuff. And it tells you in plain English how you're doing. And I'm going to show you the example of hers. Again, the name's blacked out. And many of you that are my clients have seen this because this is one of the primary pieces I go over when I do client reviews. It's up on the screen now. And this is one page, and it's very simple. What she started with, and in her case here, she started October 22nd of 2020. She started with $339,000 and change. She has not added or subtracted anything. And this is an issue too. If retirees, for example, are drawing out money, that obviously, that's not a loss, but they're taking some out of their account. And if people are adding money, that we have to account for that too. This is a simple one. She didn't add or subtract anything. Her balance as of today, almost $555,000. Her gain, investment gain, this includes interest, dividends, capital gains, share price gain, anything I happen to sell for a profit and reinvest. The total increase in her account, $215,643, not the $93,000 that was showing up on her Schwab Access Online, but more than double that because of all those factors that just Schwab isn't counting. And so instead of a 20% cumulative rate of return over just over 4 years, it's 64% cumulative, which averages about 12.33% per year, which is right along with kind of how an equity-oriented semi-aggressive portfolio should be doing. And you can see the green line up there how it's been growing. So she's been averaging a little over 12% per year, 64% cumulative. This is much easier to understand. So please, if we're in between review sessions or we haven't talked in a while and you want to know, you want one of these don't get automatically sent to you, but we can shoot one over to you at any time and I can go over it. But whether you have your account with me or whether you have it at other firms, be aware that your gain or loss on your online account isn't usually the whole picture. So hope you learned something today. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.